I'm Charlie Hill. I'm an alcoholic.
Charlie.
So, serenity prayer. God, grant me serenity to accept things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So, 10, 11, and 12. The money steps. Put this on airplane mode.
We can begin.
Thank goodness.
Oh, for God's sake. Okay, so first I passed this around. Everybody got a chance to look at it? It's kind of neat. It's 1 month older than I am. And I'm old. And it's as a big book, you know, if I was in a book study or something like that, I'd go through and show the differences between what we got now and how it happened. Because there's a lot of big differences. Dr. Bob's story is different. He claims a different amount of sobriety in this book. And did for quite some time, all the way up till 72. It was a typo, and they just left it in there for 40 years before they decided to change it. But there's some good stuff in here, and some really crazy stories, because these are the first people, and they got stories like riding the rods, the Annie the cop fighter, you know. Yeah. They were a little rugged. Yeah, sure. And it's this one here is a rat. You know, I've had some first edition big books, and they're too valuable. Like, I don't want to pass them around. I had one that hadn't been read, because in the back of the book there were 2 pages, and they were actually, you know, when they make a book they cut them. So in the back of the book there were actually 2 pages that were still together at the top like that. So they'd never been cut, and it was a spiritual experience, I think, or something like that. But there was something written in there. So I bought it, and I realized somebody had bought this book in the Ford, like 41 it was. And then they read up to Honest Desire to Stop Drinking, and then they closed it and stuck it up on the shelf. And then when they died, I guess, the kids got it, and they gave it to a secondhand store in Boca, and I found it. And I paid like $2,300 for it. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to have it and pass it around. Unfortunately, I went to Mexico with it, and a newcomer saw that they were stuck together, so he sticks his finger in there. He goes like this. And it ruined the book. So now the value of the book was shot. So I sold it. And after that, I didn't do that. I want a book like this. This is a rat here. So that you can't do much to damage this book. And they have these books you can get them online for just a few $100, because they made the first edition all the way into the 50s. So this is kind of handy to have if you're doing a book study, to actually go back to look and see how it matches up with what we got now with the 4th edition. So, step 10. In the book, the way it talks about step 10, and then probably the way, if anybody's doing it with a sponsor, the way they kind of go through it is they say, when we're wrong, we clean up things as we go along. So we've done a 9th step. Well, we haven't done a 9th step. We're halfway through the thing, and we're getting ready to get into a set of a behavior set, because that's what I believe AA is. It's behavior-based, recovery. And so there's a set of things that I can do on a daily basis that make my life hum along just fine, and it has nothing to do with my thinking. Because if it was up to my thinking, I never would have lasted this long. So over here, when after it gets done with step 9, it goes into starting on step 10. It says, this thought brings us to step 10, and then it says, it's not an overnight matter. That's hilarious. We watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, we ask God to remove them. Now we have a code. It says love and tolerance of others is our code. Love and tolerance of others. And not just the ones we agree with. Because I sponsor, I do sponsor a lot of guys, because they moved around a lot. What happened with me was when Irene and I got together in Reno, I went broke, and we moved to a little town in Auburn, California, and we were so broke. We couldn't put $1 in a basket. I'm serious. We had $6 a day to live on. And we had Irene and I, our son, and a St. Bernard Husky mix. We had $6 a day to feed us. And I don't care how you budget it, if two of you go to a meeting and you each put $1 in a basket, now you got $4 a day to feed that. It just doesn't pencil. So we couldn't put $1 in a basket. So the basket would go around and we'd have to pass it. We didn't go to coffee. We couldn't go to coffee. We were just broke. And it lasted for a while. I was in trouble with the IRS. They had their foot on my neck, and deservedly so. They didn't target me. I called them out. I started the fight. What an idiot. If you ever get the urge to tell the IRS exactly what you think, call me. So we're... I call my sponsor. He said, well, you just got to get busy doing what you're supposed to do in AA, which is standing by the door, greeting the newcomer. And when the newcomer and the visitors, because a lot of time visitors come to meetings and they come to a meeting and they're from somewhere else, usually Ohio. And they show up and our meetings aren't the same as they are in Cleveland. So maybe they got some time. And they show up in a meeting and they go... they don't like the meeting. So what they do is they don't go to the meeting. What they do is they call their sponsor back home. And then they try to stay sober that way. And people with lots of time, like 10, 20, 30 years. In Vegas, we used to get them all the time. People would show up in the meeting, come to the meeting, not like it because we were a little crazy, like 4D. And then they would disappear, go away. And then maybe they would come back. If they drank, maybe they would come back, because they all didn't come back. But at least 24 times while I was in Vegas, I've seen people come in and take a white chip and that blew off 20 or 30 years of sobriety. And the way they did it was always the same. They came to the meeting, they didn't like the meeting, so they didn't go. And they figured they had time, so they read the book and called their sponsor back home and tried to stay sober that way. Good luck. So my job, because I moved around a lot, was to make sure that if there was a visitor, I would say, if I knew where they were from, I'd say, hey, Ohio, what brings you here? But hopefully remember their name and say, what brings you here? And they would say, and you assume naturally in a place like Florida, they were there for some vacation-y reason, that they're there for something fun. But maybe not. Maybe they're there to clean out their parents' house because the last one died. And now they got to deal with that, or they're going to put their parent in a assisted living or hospice or something like that. It's not always a fun thing. I'm a visitor. I'm from Cleveland. Well, that's great. Well, welcome. End of story, right? I'm the guy that goes, hey, what brings you here? What brings you here? Why are you here? That's what we did in Auburn, because we were so broke. We would get newcomers and visitors, and we wound up sponsoring too many people. I think it's possible to sponsor too many people, but I couldn't. My sponsor wouldn't let me say no. I sponsored about 25 guys. So it means I'm doing 4 steps and 5th steps like every week. I'm just way, way busy in Alcoholics Anonymous. And so was Irene. She was doing the same thing. So we sponsor all these people, and they all get jobs, and they all get their lives back, and they all start making money. And they start going on vacation. And we couldn't afford to go on vacation. We couldn't afford coffee. So we were kind of feeling sorry for ourselves. And we knew that this thing with the IRS wasn't going to go away very quickly. We really wanted to go on vacation. And Irene says to me, she says, we got crappy jobs here. She said, I bet they have crappy jobs everywhere. She said, instead of going on vacation, why don't we pick a beautiful place that we've never been before and just move there? And go and find a meeting and a job and a place to live, in that order probably, and just move there. So instead of going to be on vacation somewhere, we would actually become part of the community. So we decided to do that. Now we're getting ready to move, and I'm trying to think of where do we move to. And one of my sponsees went on vacation to Sedona, Arizona, and he sent me a postcard. And the postcard I'm looking at is gorgeous. And I said, is it that pretty? He goes, yeah, it's that pretty. So I said, all right, we're going to Sedona. So we decided to move to Sedona. Here's what happened with my sponsees. They went nuts. If they were in the middle of the steps, you can't leave, you can't go, you're my sponsor, we got to do the steps, you know. I don't know why if a sponsee gets an opportunity to move someplace really beautiful, it's an opportunity. But if a sponsor gets the same opportunity, it's somehow a betrayal. So we were thinking of moving in 2 months, but instead we had to move in 2 weeks. I mean, it was like villagers with pitchforks and crap, you know. So we just gave most of our stuff away and got in a truck and moved to Sedona. So we went to Sedona, and we go to one of the meetings, and I'm going to keep track of the time because this is kind of a cute story. The meeting was just in a town just outside of Sedona. Has anybody been to Sedona?
Yes.
Yeah, it's nuts. Isn't that beautiful? Yes. Oh my God. So we go there, and we go to a meeting. So we kind of drew straws, and one of us watched the kid, and the other one went to the meeting. So I get to go to the meeting. So I go to the meeting, and it's maybe this half of the room here. And there was where you draw coupons, tickets, and you get to, if they pull your ticket, you get to talk. So when they called my number, and I said, I'm Charlie Hill, I'm an alcoholic, I just moved here. My sponsor told me I should get some phone numbers, so I'd like to pass around a schedule. And if you could put your phone number in, that'd be great. So it goes around the room, and it comes back, and I open it up, and it's blank. There wasn't one number. I'm going, wow. And there's this little biker chick next to me, and I poked her. I said, look at this. And she goes, oh, God. Next day, my sweetheart goes. She's a cute little blonde. Hi, I just moved here, and I'd like to get some phone numbers. So she goes to the same meeting, and she gets 11 guys' phone numbers. So she goes, look at this. I go, oh, my God. She said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to call him. I started calling these guys. Hey, where'd you get my number? You gave it to my wife, you dickhead. So I called my sponsor. And I said, what do I do? He says, you're going to do the same thing you did in Auburn. Because there's visitors coming to that meeting and newcomers coming to that meeting. And you're the guy that's going to greet them at the door. And you're going to call them by their name because they always say their names. Hi, Pat, I'm glad you're here, and I hope to see you in another meeting. You know, and especially visitors say, how'd you like the meeting? Well, you know, there's other meetings, and get a fellowship to grow up around me. That's what he said to do. Get a fellowship to grow up around you. Next thing you know, we're sponsoring people. Now we go to the meetings, and the meetings change. It's impossible to change a meeting from the outside. If I come to your meeting and I say, hey, you know, the way we do it in California is this way, you know, you're done talking to me. But if I sponsor people in the meeting and they start to do what I'm doing, the flavor can change. That's the only way to change a meeting. So we stayed there 3.5 years. That was our fuse. We would stay there 3.5. We would move to a beautiful place and stay there 3.5 years roughly, and then pick another beautiful place and do the same thing again. And we made a conscious decision to do that. That instead of going on vacation, we would drop into beautiful spots and set off a sponsor bomb, you know, get a pocket of enthusiasm going, and then go do it again. So we spent 3.5 years there, and then one day we were on vacation in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, and we were looking around, had our son with us, and somebody offered me a job, and a very good one. And so I came back and I said, listen, I just got offered a really good job. What do you think? So they walked around town for a while, and they liked Cabo, and we moved. So we go back to Arizona, load up our stuff, give a lot of it away, and move to Cabo San Lucas. And we go to the meetings there. And they didn't do it right. It was awful. You could hear, there wasn't a sponsorship thing like you guys belong in this really good group. You do sponsorship, I see you doing stuff. And that wasn't the case in Cabo. But what we did is we did service work by going to the resorts and letting them know if somebody wanted a meeting, that all they had to do was call us and we would pick them up. Because if they got in a cab in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, they might be going to a whorehouse instead of a meeting, you know, depending on who was paying off the cab driver. So our job was to pick them up and get them to the meeting, get them to tacos afterwards, and get them back home. And we lived there for about 3.5 years. And then I got a job offer in Central Oregon, Sisters, Oregon, beautiful place. Snow-capped mountains, you know, from horizon to horizon. And went to the meetings, and They weren't doing it right. And I didn't even have to call my sponsor. I knew what my job was. My job was to get by the door and greet the newcomer, and get a fellowship to go up around me. And see, what's happened is by the time I got to that move, I realized that you could parachute me anywhere on earth. I don't care where you send me. I'm okay. There's absolute freedom. It's not that I love my home group, but you could drop me into Italy, and I'm gonna go to the meetings. I'm going to put my hand out, and I'm going to greet newcomers and visitors, and a fellowship's going to go up around me. It's portable. It's portable. It was fantastic. In Redmond, Oregon, we got sisters in Redmond. We got a really good group of people. We'd have dinners and stuff like this, and then we went to Boca Raton on vacation, and there was an apartment there for rent on the beach, and I thought, well, I wonder what it costs here. It was $775 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment looking at the water. Thought, that's God's will, right? so we sold everything in Oregon and came out to Boca. And they weren't doing it right. They chant the preamble, Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of minimum. And I'm thinking, this is terrible. Wait. Oh yeah, stand by the door, greet the newcomer, the visitors, and start sponsoring people and get that pocket of enthusiasm, get this fellowship to go up around me. That's the whole deal. Then we moved there to North Palm Beach, and then Jupiter, and then back to Cabo. And I had a great job there. I made so much money I haven't worked since. Then we moved to Todos Santos, Mexico, a little town with 5 AA members. And Irene and I made 7. And 2 of the people didn't like us. We're a little too cheerful for some people. And but we did the same thing. We just greeted visitors and newcomers and did the same thing there. In 2007, my mom called me up and said, your sister's got a week to live. And so we went to Vegas, and my sister died on time. First thing she ever did on time. And we got there. I'm serious, man. That's my sister's big book. You see it. So, but she while she was busy dying, my stepdad, who was married to my mom for 34 years, got MRSA, the super virus, and died. She died on the 4th of December, and he died on the 16th of December. And my mom, my little mom, she's just buried her husband and buried her daughter. And we're going to meetings because we know we can't leave. We got to stay there and take care of business. So we go to a meeting, and somebody says, "Are there any visitors?" Yeah, Charlie Hill, Todos Santos, Mexico. Irene Parker, Todos Santos, Mexico. That's great. Nobody asked us why we were there. Nobody came up and said, what brings you here? Because we just buried more than half of my existing family. And nobody came up and asked us that question. And it really struck home to me. So if somebody says they're a visitor in a meeting, if I'm there, I'm going to talk to them. Even if it's not my meeting, I'm going to go find out what brings you here? What brings you here? So that wasn't what I wanted to talk about, but that's what I talked about. But the biggest thing is that whole thing, that whole concept of having a meeting and having that fellowship grow up around you is such a gift if you can get it going. You can do it absolutely anywhere. Anywhere. There's some guys in this room that can't get out of town. I guess too many people calling them. So they talk about step 10. It says, here, we have ceased fighting anything or anyone. And when I read it, I said, we have ceased fighting everything and everyone. And my sponsor, I had to read it twice before I got it right. And he pointed out that I don't have to go to every fight I'm invited to. I would go to fights I wasn't invited to. If you guys were arguing, I would step in and say, don't let him talk like that. You leave. I would go to fights I wasn't invited to. If I'm talking to the TV, that's a fight I'm not invited to. I'm yelling at them. I'm having conversations in my car with people that I'm having a problem with, and they're not in the car. And I always win those. I don't know about you guys. I always win those conversations. At the end, they carry me out on their shoulders. Position of neutrality. So it says that step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. So step 10 is, clean it up, and do it on a daily basis. Step 11 is suggest prayer and meditation, and it says that I want to make sure I get it right. I don't want to do it wrong. It says it sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us. And I said that for a long time. It never dawned on me that it says us, because I always thought it was God's will for me. So I would do the prayer and I say, okay, what's God's will for me today? And that's not what it says. It says God's will for us. And Dave really brought it home on me. He said, you realize that, imagine that you're just broke. You're just dead broke. And I could imagine it because I was. And he said, and you go somewhere to make a deal. And if you make this deal, everything's going to be set right. And so you go there to make the deal. The most important thing in your life that day is to make that deal. Because you're broke, your wife's working some crappy job and all that. But the deal goes south. That would be bad, right? That's why we're all sitting here. Because Bill went to Akron to make a deal with a rubber company, and it fell through. He didn't have enough money to get back to New York. That's why he hung around at Bob's house so long. And because he did not get his way, he met Bob. And they got this thing going. One alcoholic talking to another. There's millions of us now. And that happened because Bill did not get his will for him. He got his will for us. The deal went south. He didn't really make any money for a long, long, long time. He stayed broke. So, it's God's will for us. And the power to carry that out. There's step 11. I used Chuck Chamberlain's new pair of glasses. I use his prayers a lot. He's got a prayer that he says in the morning. He says, hello, God, I'm reporting for duty. I'm going to do the best I can with what I've got. And all I ask of you is a little guidance and direction. And I sure do thank you. And that's the prayer I said before I got up here to talk. My prayer wasn't, let me razzle and dazzle them with about 10, 11, and 12. It was, hello, God, I'm reporting for duty. I'm going to do the best I can with what I've got. And all I ask of you is a little guidance and direction, and I sure do thank you. And that takes all the heat off of me. All I can do is the best I can with what I've got. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, great. We're talking about God's will for us. Maybe I'm supposed to tank. What do I know? But I can honestly say that what I'm giving you guys is the best I got. I'm doing the best I can with what I've got. And so it took all the pressure off me. The second prayer he gave me was pretty cool. It says we pause throughout the day and look at what we're doing. And he has another prayer, and it's in the book of New Pair of Glasses. It's not AA literature because it's pretty godly. So they backed off on it. But it says, hello, God, I'm reporting for duty. Look, oh yeah, this is when we do something that's bad, like talk about somebody that's not in the room or something like that. And I would carry that around all day and then not be able to get rid of it till at night. And this prayer was, hello, God, I'm reporting for duty. Look what I did. You don't like it and I don't like it, but I'll try to do better. And with your help, I know I will. And I sure do thank you. Then the third prayer is when something good happens, And when something good happens, I want to, good job. But I can't do that. So I say, hello, God, I'm reporting for duty. Look what I did. It shouldn't have happened to a guy like me, but it did. And I sure do thank you. So what those three prayers do is it just takes my hands off the wheel so that I can let things happen like they're supposed to. I'm a pilot. I fly small planes. And there's something that happens when a plane, if anybody flies, when the plane starts getting wonky, you just want to fight it more. The best invention they said they could have for somebody in that situation is a boxing glove that comes out of the dashboard and just knocks the pilot out just long enough so the plane can do what it wants to do, which is fly. And it's the same with this. I just let go and let this thing work for me. It also talks about that we're undisciplined, so we let God discipline us in the simple ways that we've outlined. what I've got here is I've got a set of rails, and the first one is prayer and meditation. And I was very bad at prayer and meditation. And when I was about 38 years sober, I met this guy, and he was a Jesuit priest, and it was at a retreat, men's retreat, about the second retreat I ever went to, and he was an alcoholic, and all they do is pray and meditate. That's their whole deal. And so I asked him, I said, I'm having trouble meditating. I said, I can pray. I got the prayer part down. I got that. I can't meditate. I'll sit to meditate. I'm in the position. And then, the plant needs water. So I'll take the plant in the kitchen and get it water, and I'll notice something else needs to be get done. Just bam, like, I'm 10 seconds. I'm faster than my sex life, for God's sake. So I said, well, that's it. I can't meditate. What he did was he took the things that the Jesuits do, and he translated it into what I could do as an alcoholic. And he set up a thing that I could do for 10 minutes a day. And his first thing is read something. So I read something pertaining to either daily reflections, Bible, book, something. And then it says think about it, which is what they do. This is what they do, and this is what I do in AA. And then the third one that they do is adoration. And what I do is, hello, God, I'm reporting for duty. The next one is contrition, which is like a little mini 10-step. And mine is pretty cut and dried right now. I pray every day that I don't manage my situation with the hurricanes, because I have 2 houses and I keep rebuilding them over and over. And I just got to let that go, because it's not something I can do. And I also have a habit of hijacking conversations. We could be talking, and especially with newcomers, and say somebody, hey, how you doing? And they start to tell me how they're doing. And as soon as they mention something that I have a history with, like, oh, I'm here from Sacramento. Oh, well, I used to live in Sacramento. And now it's my conversation. So I had to learn how to ask them how they were doing and let them finish. And I work on that every day. It's something I work on every day. Then the next one is Thanksgiving. Thank you, God. Thank you for another sober day. Supplication, which is a humble ask of God. And I humbly ask him to whatever is bothering me that day, whether it's that or whether it's the daughter that don't talk to me or whatever it is, being nicer, doing something for no reason nicely. And then I get contemplative quiet, and I set the timer for 10 minutes, and I do it for 10 minutes. So I said, I think I can do that. And he said, well, how about this? He says, how about you do that, and you, when you're done, call me. He says, and then we realized that didn't work, so he said, text me. Just text me. Just text me, done. I'm done with my prayer meditation. He said, and try to do it in the morning. So I started to do it, and I did it with him for 3 months. And then at month 3, he didn't answer my text. He didn't come back with good job or whatever, because I already knew he was doing it, because that's his job. And so I finally got a hold of him, and he was in the hospital. He had congestive heart failure, pneumonia, and he died like 2 days later. So this guy, now I'm stuck. See, now I'm stuck, because this guy here gives me how to pray and meditate every day, and how to be accountable to somebody else, right? And then he dies on me 3 months later. So I just felt, I had to keep doing it. So what I did was I have a group of guys, and what we do is when I'm done praying and meditating, I just text them done. There's 14 guys on the list right now. I text them done, and when they're done with their prayer and meditation, done. This was March 17th of 2018, and I have not missed a day of prayer and meditation in the morning since then. Not because I'm a very spiritual guy, but because, like I said before, it's behavior-based. This is behavior-based. This is behavior-based recovery. So it doesn't matter what I'm thinking about doing that stuff. What matters is that I do it. If I do pray and meditate, if I do that every day, I'm going to get the results. It's just like doing push-ups. If I do push-ups every day, I'm going to feel better. I'm going to be stronger. It doesn't matter if I believe it. I'm going to be stronger, and it's the same with this. So that's how I got over that prayer and meditation thing. He did a couple other things with me. The 12-step is pretty cool. I just covered it real quick. You know, we live in very nice times right now. When I first got sober, we used to volunteer. If you put your name on the 12-step list, and you would be by the central office, then they would say, "Hey, we got a 12-step call," and off you go. And you put somebody in your car, and they always sat in the middle, and they always dropped a cigarette in the seat or threw up back there. And it was like these were like hardcore 12 steps. Take a bottle of whiskey with you, or a jug of Karo syrup and orange juice, because they would go into DTs. Because it wasn't like it is today. Today, what it is, we need the objects to get them detoxed, and they have a process now where we can get them detoxed. We don't have to keep them at the house. We don't have to watch them throw up. We don't have to do that. And personally, when it first started, when the treatment center, the detox started, it was kind of an uproar. Oh, it's going to ruin AA, because it's not like the old days. Well, in the original old days, you had to go to a hospital first. They got all those new guys out of hospitals, so don't buy that one. But I think it's great, because by the time we get to a newcomer, they're already spun dry. If you'll pardon me. I'm not saying that to be mean, but it's true. They've been spun dry. The alcohol is not so prevalent, and then you can start to deal with the issue. What brings you here today? The police. But so what I've got is I've got the three prayers in here. I've got the three prayers in here from Chuck Chamberlain, like that. And then, now talking about the 12 step, and one thing about the 12 step is that the book has a long chapter about the 12 step, and it talks about going out and getting these people and talking to the wife first and getting ready to do it. And we all know that's not how we do it now. That in fact, we don't want to usually talk to the wife. We keep that aside and just talk to the person we're talking to. I don't want to talk to people's parents. I don't want to. In fact, I won't. If a parent calls me up and says, "Hey, listen, I'm really worried about little Billy," I say, "Well, I'm not going to talk about little Billy. You can call him if you like, but I'm not going to talk about him. Because little Billy's telling me things he don't want you to know," and I don't say that part. And there's no way I'm going to share that with you. Because how would that be? How would that be if you're new and you come in here and somebody's sponsoring you, and all of a sudden your parents go, "Well, we were talking with your sponsor, and he's a little worried about that gay thing," or whatever. So the book talks all about how we talk to the relatives, and we just don't do that. I had a guy. Actually, the guy's wife calls me up and says, "We got it." We'll call everybody. I call everybody Bob because I don't want to use any names, and sometimes I'm actually talking about Bob, but I'm sorry. I apologize, Bob. And she says, "Bob's drunk, and we all have to do an intervention." And I'd never done an intervention. So I said, "Well, let me get back to you." And I call up my sponsor. And I said, I got this guy a sponsor. He's really, really drunk. He goes, "What's really, really drunk?" I go, "She says he's blotto. He's really, really drunk." So I've never done an intervention. What should I do? And he says, "Well, would you consider him an attractive man?" And I already did my fourth and fifth step with him, so I don't know where he was going with this. But I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, is he homely, or is he, good-looking guy?" I said, "No, I sponsored him. The guy's a good-looking guy, He said, "Well, then you can't work with him." And I go, "What?" He says, "You can't work with him if he's good-looking. If he's ugly, you can work with him." I said, "Where are you getting that?" He says, "It's in the book." It actually is in the book. And it's on page 90. Yeah, right there. 90. Here we go. Working with others. Sometimes the wives will wait till it goes on a binge. The family may object to this, but unless he is in a dangerous physical condition, it's better to risk it, not to risk it. or not to risk it. Don't deal with him when he was very drunk unless he is ugly. So I did wind up at a 12-step call, and the guy was really drunk, but we were already there. So me and this other guy worked on him, and he didn't get sober, but eventually he did. And so I'm sponsoring him, and he gets a year. And when I gave him his chip, I said, "This is the only guy I've ever worked with when he's really drunk because he's really ugly." It says in the book. So the biggest thing in here that my sponsor used to have me read it before I talk. He said, "Read this thing," and sometimes I'd read it from the podium or I'd read it right before I stood up. It's on page 95. It says, "You will be most successful with alcoholics if you do not exhibit any passion for crusader reform. Never talk down to an alcoholic from any moral or spiritual hilltop. Simply lay out the kit of spiritual tools for his inspection, show him how they work with you, offer him friendship, fellowship, tell him if he wants to get well, you do anything to help." And that's the end of it. I don't carry alcoholics. I just carry the message. And he suggested that I never go on a 12-step alone. So when I do get to go on a 12-step, I always make sure I take somebody with me. And it's not for safety. If I'm 12-stepping you and I'm the only guy there, by the time I'm talking to you for a little while, I'm an expert on Alcoholics Anonymous. It's just amazing. So all of a sudden, but if I'm there with you and we're talking to him, you're going to start going, "Hey, wait a minute, hold up there, and keep me humble and keep me right-sized." So I think that's the biggest reason that they would do it in pairs like that. I can imagine being the man on the bed. What if it was only one guy talking to him? We might not be here today. So, we're going to leave you guys to it a little bit. There's a couple of things I did want to say. That Chuck Chamberlain was a wonderful guy. That was my grand sponsor for many years. New pair of glasses is actually just literally a translation of, or not a translation, but a transcription of what he said on a 3-day retreat in San Diego and Palm Springs. And I really liked him because he was very nuts and bolts about the spirituality thing. Not only 12-stepping people, because you guys, I've seen you guys work around here, and you guys are really dialed in and trying to help each other. That's 12-step work. If knee to knee, it's 12-step work. It's really everything that matters. But Chuck was so busy. He made a lot of money. He's very, very busy. And he was driving around in L.A. He did all the, for Vaughn's grocery stores, he did all of their displays in Los Angeles. And that's how he made his money. So he's driving around this big Lincoln. He's got a newcomer with him who I know. He's in my home group in Vegas. And the newcomer was looking at, watching Chuck. And Chuck's just very calm and answering questions and stuff like that. So he goes, "How do you not get upset? You're driving in traffic," because it wasn't any good in the 60s either. He says, "How do you stay calm?" And he goes, "I just drive this car. I put it on my dashboard. I just drive this car. I know none of you have that problem, but I'm driving along and I'm watching a guy in the rear view mirror and he's doing this, like that. And I know if I speed up just a little bit, I can pinch him off. And now I can't get around. I know nobody can hear has done that. I just need to drive this car." And then he said something else. He said, if you let them in, they're not cutting you off. God dang, man, this is such a simple deal. The last thing he did was what Dave did with me is he broke my life down into four categories. And this is not AA. You can look at this if you want, but this is what keeps me on track right now. And he said the reason he says that 10, 11, and 12 is the nuts and bolts of how we deal with everything is that I got to deal with contractors and the permitting department and relatives, and all that stuff that happens in a day. And he said that any problem that I come up with is because I don't have the things that my life, it's not in the right file. He told me there was 4 files. He just took an index card and folded it up. And he said, there's 4 files here. We're going to put everything in your life in one of these 4 files. I said, all right, Dave. And he goes, first file is imperative. And he goes, what's imperative in your life? I go, I have to breathe. And he says, what happens if you don't breathe? Well, if you don't breathe, you're going to pass out and you'll start breathing again. You can't stop your own heart. He says, what else? And I said, God. He says, well, God was there before you stopped drinking. So what's imperative in your life? And finally he defined it. He says, imperative is everything, is the most important thing in my life. Is what it allows me to do everything else. Imperative in my life. And finally I gave up, and he said, what? I said, what is it? He says, you can't drink. He says, you can work everything else in your life just like you want to, but if you drink, you know what happens. For you, it says in the book, to drink is to die. Whether we die physically or whether we die of all the good things we have in our lives. Everything goes away. It all dies. He says, so that's imperative. The only imperative you have, just talking to me, I'm not talking to you, is that you don't drink. So that's my one imperative. I don't drink. I don't drink. I got up this morning, I hadn't had a drink. I'm going to go to bed tonight, and my head's going to hit the pillow without a drink. I win. Everything else is second to that. That's the gold standard of sobriety. I heard somebody say, and I've heard it recently, whoever got up earliest this morning is the most sober. Well, that means I could get blotto, maybe, do some heroin too, and get up at 3, and I'm more sober than you? We all know that's not true. I can't drink. No matter what, I can't drink. And that's the first thing in a file. Is the imperative is I can't drink. I say, so what? He says, the next file is important. And I go, okay, I got this one. I said, my wife, which is funny because she divorced me. My kids, and some of them are talking to me. My job, my health, right? Making a living. And he said, they don't go in there. They're not, bless you. They said they're not important. And I said, how can you say that's not important? How can my kids not be important? What about working out, stuff like that? How can they not be important? He says, because all the important things, by definition, are the things that allow you to stay sober. The important things are the things that allow you to do the imperative. So it's like no great story happens without an imperative. That movie Taken, where the guy's daughter is taken, right? And now he's got to go in and get his daughter back. You could have stopped him and asked him if he had a extended warranty on his truck. He's not going to listen to you. He's only thinking about one thing, and that's getting that daughter back. So he had one thing to do. Luke comes home, his aunt and uncle are fried on the front steps. Now he's got to save mankind from vaporizing. That's an imperative. Nothing else matters. And most great stories have an imperative. And we have been given a real gift because we have an imperative. I have an imperative. I can't drink no matter what. I can't drink no matter what. So what allows me to not drink? That's what goes in the important file and nothing else. If not drink is my imperative, then important are all the things that allow me to not drink. And that's just the book, my sponsorship, talking to you, answering the phone at odd hours. Prayer, meditation, meetings, the phone. The phone is a huge tool in sobriety. All those things are important because they won't get me drunk, but they could, and they help keep me sober. The interesting file is all the things that I thought were important. They won't keep me sober, and they could get me drunk. And that's where my wife goes, my job, my car, my health. We're all trying to take care of ourselves, but I could work out every day, and so I could have something growing in me that's going to kill me next month, and not even have no control over it. If it won't keep me sober but could get me drunk, it's only interesting. So all that stuff with the hurricane that took out my houses, it's only interesting. It's only interesting. It's not important because it won't keep me sober, but it could get me drunk if I stay on it. Then the last file is who cares? It's the one that's the furthest thing from my sobriety and the one thing that could get me drunk the fastest. And that's my own opinion. If my own opinion, if you're not paying attention to my opinion, then I'm in danger. And my opinion does not matter much. It just doesn't mean nothing. And so so if I'm upset, it's because I got something in the wrong file. I got her in the important file. I got something in the wrong file. And the worst is when I have my opinion in the wrong file. And so when I talk about how 10, 11, and 12 is a set of rails for me to run on, that's what I got from 10, 11, and 12, what I just shared with you. And if I am conscious of that on a daily basis, I got a really good chance of not drinking today. Really good chance. And so do you. So the biggest reason to do 10, 11, and 12 is because that's the daily living stuff. That's the stuff that allows me to wait for a medical biopsy or something without freaking out. Or I've buried 4 sponsees in the last 3 weeks that I sponsored. 2 of them I sponsored over 30 years. Bless them. A lot of stuff happens to us we have no control over. But I really believe we do have control over something. And I believe this is a behavior-based recovery, and that I have control over what I do physically on a daily basis that allows me to live this wonderful, wonderful life I have. Because I live with you guys all understand me. Everybody here, if I tell you I drank when I was drunk, I drank when I didn't want to. You guys all understand me. I know I'm an alcoholic. I called in sick once on my day off. It's not something normal. I threw up in my pants once. I was sitting on the toilet. I threw up in my pants. Now, I could go to the border realtors and tell that story, and they would be disgusted. And I say that in here, and I get people going, yeah, I can see that happening. You're the only ones on earth that understand us. You know. Bless you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Okay. So we're probably going to go a little bit over, but that's my take on 10, 11, and 12. I got this stuff with the meditation and everything. It's available. Anybody wants to give me a holler, I can share it with you. But clear it with your sponsor. And there are a lot of guys smarter than me about this meditation and stuff. There's a lot of guys. But I do it. I can tell you, look at Denny, I meditate and pray every single day. And because it's competitive, right? It's good. I sponsor a guy named Sheldon, and we were like fighting to see who could. I'm done. I would try to be done before him. And now I've moved to the East Coast, so it's cakewalk. If I'm done at 9, it's 6 o'clock back there. Done in your face, you know. And it's very competitive. So that's all I got. So let's share a little bit about experiences with 10, 11, and 12.